Welcome to HPTV, the Food and Pottermore edition, where everyone has snacks except for the guy that actually lives in England. I did look up the goldfish, and I think I could have bought a pack for like 17 pounds plus shipping. And it's a little steep. I'll wait until there's something else available.
Something amazing.
They're not doing like the butterbeer event or whatever in England. It's just here. Is that it?
I mean, they might at the studio tour, but no, there's not like a bunch of extra stuff in grocery stores or anything.
I live like right across the street from a small neighborhood Walmart. And I've actually just been doing all my shopping at the Super Walmart, which is further away because that's the only place that ever has the butterbeer stuff. Because sometimes it just pops up, so that's why I got these.
Well, here, so they have the butterbeer stuff, but then like Hasbro's been like doing Potter gummies. Pez has had Potter things. Potter is in the air.
Has your local weed dispensary been doing Potter gummies? Because
probably, I'm sure there's a Potter spread of marijuana. I have been ordering every once in a while Percy Pigs from the youth. Well, I get them through Amazon. It's like $8.
That's not too bad.
That's not bad.
No.
I don't do it very often. But
Hannah loves Percy Pigs.
I think I ever tried one of those, and I'm afraid to because I can't afford that.
They remind me of another candy. Oh, they kind of remind me of the pink part of a Krabby Patty, but they're better. Yep. They have like more of a flavor.
They're that same type of gummy, though, for sure.
Yeah.
It's like the
that, texture. I like that texture.
Spongy, kind of gummy.
And a lot of people are like, that's disgusting. I'm like, no, but I will say it's not quite as soft as whatever. Anyway, let's go on. Let's eat food.
Jimmy, you did the Skinny Pop just a minute ago. Let's start with that, and then you guys can compare your goldfish.
We came across Skinny Pop, a butterbeer. My husband did, and he got it. He's found like almost all this.
What do you think?
So the smell hasn't been strong as the other items, which I've liked, but it's kind of disappointing. I wish there was like more of a butter flavor with it. It's not quite like kettle corn, but it doesn't taste butterscotchy to me either, so I don't know. It's okay.
Is it more like caramel corn with like a crust on it, or is it just like kettle corn where it's got some flavoring?
It's like has a powder flavoring on it.
Cheap powder.
It's okay. I was kind of hoping more like a butter and like kind of Scotch. Like a kettle corn, but like more of a butterscotch kind of flavor with like actual butter flavoring. It's meh. But I was excited by the smell.
If it was called butter and scotch, it would be quite misleading because that's not a great combination. It reminds me, remember they were just releasing bacon flavored everything, and I had to try it because I had an obsession with bacon. Bacon salt is actually pretty good, and if you just put bacon salt on popcorn, it's not that bad, but a lot of the other bacon stuff was misled, especially all the bacon sodas. They were all bad. All of them.
I'm a bacon purist. I like just plain bacon, or like on a cheeseburger, something's okay.
But see, I like bacon or a BLT, maybe a club, but that's the purest, best form of bacon. Or
I love a BLT.
Maple bacon
like
donut
bacon
is fine.
Itself, yeah.
No.
See, I've never really liked bacon, but, the baker flavoring that they put on stuff, like crackers or bacon. That stuff's horrible. Now, I did find one exception recently that surprised me, and it's Cheez-Its. They're like Cheez-Its Duos, those regular Cheez-Its mixed in with bacon-flavored Cheez-Its, and it hits the spot. They taste... It's like just enough bacon-y and the cheese, so maybe give those a try when you.
I will say a BLT is the best sandwich ever. It's so satisfying. Satisfying.
They do a lot of bacon-flavored chips or crisps here, and so those I don't prefer them, but they're kind of that fake bacon flavor, but sometimes they're good. But anyway, how are the goldfish?
While we're on the bacon.
Oh, go on.
Well, hold on. Before we get to that, on the bacon topic, I want to know what bacon is better, bacon here in the U.S. or bacon in the UK?
It's not even close. It's the U.S. It's I think even British people know that. Bacon here, they don't, it's slightly thicker, slightly wider. It's just I don't know what's the difference between the pigs and the cut, because you can get American bacon here sometimes, and also they generally just cook it. It's less crispily cooked. My mother-in-law likes really crispy bacon, so it's always great when she makes it. But yeah, I want a real meat person to explain it to me, why it's so different. The taste is there, it's okay, but yeah, I mean, generally I prefer, if it's a breakfast sandwich, I prefer sausage as the main meat anyway, but here I'm not even just tempted to grab bacon, whereas yesterday I was in the Netherlands and they had a really good continental breakfast. It was a pretty hotel we had to stay at, but it had American style, just this thin bacon just piled in there, and I was like, England is missing out. Like now, all those times in Harry Potter when they talk about bacon for breakfast, bacon sandwiches, they were having subpar bacon.
It's tragedy. It really is. But I do remember that in Brazil, you couldn't buy like sliced bacon. You'd buy like slabs of bacon because they would use it like cut pieces and put in like beans because they make a lot of like.
I remember getting a burger there.
I would try and cut it really thin with a knife, and I could just never get it thin and even enough, and it was tragic.
God bless America. God bless America.
Amen.
This conversation is making me very hungry.
Bacon. I know. I haven't eaten in a minute. You know what I tried
today? My wife's
today?
coming back from Chick-fil-A with a sandwich any minute,
oh,
so I may have to eat that while we talk.
I'm on a diet. We should mention that Steven has some roofing going on at his house, so that's the banging you hear in the background.
I'm not even noticing it anymore. I was just assuming my upstairs neighbors were celebrating something.
I thought you were hitting your microphone, and I was like, oh, wait, that's the banging. The banging.
The roof
moved to a different area right now, so hopefully
it's not as bad.
They stay over there. It's not. All right, so Harry Potter goldfish.
I'm so jealous right now.
Very nice on these. You got the dark blue because you have the same pattern on the skinny popcorn, right? With the dark blue. This is not what the fudge stripes look like, or the. I do still have some of the butterbeer kisses, so the packaging is quite different. But I really like this pattern.
Goldfish has a cinnamon roll flavor that came out too.
Yeah, well, they have this whole new range of ones that are actually graham cracker based that are still shaped like goldfish, but there's like birthday cake flavored and there's cinnamon roll ones. And so this is, one of those. So
these smell really strong. Smell way too strong. Makes me a little sick.
While you guys are chewing,
I expect the flavor to be stronger though.
Yeah.
The poor people with misophonia, man. Someone is selling them for $6.99 plus shipping, so that's better. But then someone is trying to sell, how many is this? 10 packs for 57 pounds, which is $73.99 in American dollars. So,
how much would it cost me to ship it to you?
I don't know. We should Google it.
This is pretty good. Like the cookie, I like the back end of this the most. Like where you get like the cookie part and the butterscotch kind of flavor.
It's good because you still get graham cracker. Like there's still some of the graham flavor, but you have this extra layer and it's smooth. It's not quite as like smacky in the face butterscotch.
It's kind of like a Teddy Graham.
Mm-hmm.
It has
that
really
appealing.
butterscotch smell. The smell is just too much.
There's some butteriness to it.
Yeah,
and there's butterscotch. So now I'm gonna have trouble not finishing these while we talk. I'm gonna have to savor the
flavor.
Savor the flavor.
I should do advertisements. You got to think because butterbeer itself in Harry Potter is more like we'd like to imagine the warm version. It's probably not very good, but it brings the wizards joy. I just don't think they're innovative enough to apply that flavoring to anything else. So,
is butterbeer supposed to be alcoholic?
I feel like that's debated because like house elves get drunk off of it, but students don't. But they kind of imply they're like it's not strong enough. That implies that there's like a little bit in it. Like, could you get a wee buzz from a few butterbeers? I don't know.
Because kombucha technically has a little bit of alcohol in it, but anyone can drink it because it's fermented. So I wonder if it's like.
So
it says Google's AI says it is. It has a small amount of alcohol because Winky becomes intoxicated.
Maybe Joe Rowling revealed that on Pottermore. Speaking of Pottermore, so remember, I know you have some more details about this, but I remember when Pottermore was coming out, and it was like we're expanding the Wizard World, we're bringing this interactive new horizon to the fandom, and I remember staying up till midnight because there was like a beta, and like we just wanted every little thing and to be there as soon as possible, and we knew it wasn't like Hogwarts Legacy or even like a very casual version of like what you could do in the world. It wasn't a game, but it was like that. It was so vague. It was great marketing because they made it sound like something.
Well, it was just something, right? This was 4 years after the last book had come out, I think, 3.5, 4. And so people are just like starving for something new, right? We hadn't gotten that long without something new, Potter, in a long time, since I think book 5. And so we were just like, yes, Joe's going to put out all this new stuff. We're going to get to see all of this. And I mean, it was pretty cool, especially all the teasers, right? As you got in and you got to like do little things on the site before it really opened up. And it seemed like there was a ton of potential. So it was exciting when it was happening.
Probably my first like beta. Like,
yeah.
thing you signed up. But there was like little like animated task kind of things you had to do or something, right?
Well, and eventually I learned it evolved. There were like mini games. I remember one or two of them, but I think there were more, and people really liked it because they're gone now. But I just remember all I wanted was more information about the world, or if it would have been truly interactive, like you would have done something with the fact that you were in a house. Like I know the mini games got you points, but you got a house and a Patronus, and but it didn't feel like you could actually create much more in there. And then I just wanted the J.K. Rowling little tidbits, which it turns out there are like 94 of. It didn't feel like that much, but I remember keeping up with them. But I've definitely forgot all this because like the wand one is super deep, and I was like, yeah, I'm not going to remember all that. But I'm tempted to go back and reread a lot of it. But yeah,
so you
some
could
of them
go
are
through
like 2 paragraphs, and others are like what would be pages long. And so it is interesting just to see like how deep she goes on some of it.
Well, it's like, so you went through like chapter by chapter or book. I don't know if it was every book or book by book. And then in each one, there was like little little pop-ups of like things you could read. And then there was bigger things you could read. Like just getting all those other characters' backstories and stuff like that was really cool. So
but they were like, it wasn't like the whole book. You'd get like an abbreviation of the chapter, and then there'd be like links to extra stuff that Joe would include. So you get your background on McGonagall, or you had, Quidditch to the Ages type of stuff about the history. And so like when it launched, it had all of the first book, and then over time they would drop like chapters like in chunks of the different books. But toward the end, I think they kind of lost steam because they were just dropping, I think 6 and 7, they just dropped the whole book on like random dates. Whereas the other ones, you could do like special stuff to get early access and stuff. I think people just kind of started losing interest. So they kind of threw it all on there. And it was a cool way to look at it. But I also remember being on there and just being like, what is the point? What am I supposed to be doing? Like, I know this book by heart, so I don't really need to read this chapter summary. I just want to get like the extra stuff related to whatever topic it was. What was that?
That's old Pottermore, it says. An image.
Oh, okay.
That's all true.
But I loved being able to read all the stuff, which there is some stuff still. It's changed now. In 2019, it became wizardingworld.com. And now is it harrypotter.com or is it wizardingworld.com?
I think both of them redirect, but it's harrypotter.com is where you end up.
But I loved all the extra information and more reading and just like the rounding out of the world that you didn't get so much in the books.
The filling of some plot holes, not big time, but like Harry Potter, I called him by his full name in a weird way, but like how he can't see Thestrals at first. And she says it's because he can't understand and process death. I'm like, he seemed pretty traumatically affected by it to me, but all right. Like, no, I'll forgive that sort of thing. But yeah, it's...
Well, I figure a lot of people make the argument that, because he witnessed his parents dying, or I guess Quirrell. But he wasn't technically conscious when Quirrell actually died, I think. He kind of, passed out through that. But, I didn't remember his parents or that kind of thing. So I think Cedric was the first one where it, hit him. He watched it happen. But it's really interesting to understand, at least the way she explained it away, right? Because if she didn't, do that properly in the moment, she was able to find a good explanation for it later.
Yeah.
Which I think there should be more of. That could be in the TV series. I think there's some of those plot holes where it's just like, hey, if you just give a little explanation, you can close that sucker.
That's true. It's the potential. Jimmy was just flashing up some pictures, if you're watching the video version, of the OG little rooms you could go in, things that you could click on, like potions class and whatnot. And I do remember wanting every nook and cranny, but yeah, by the time they got into the book chapter summaries and their imagery, I was just like, I don't feel like this is, it's like Steven said, the story. I don't feel like it's enhancing my enjoyment of the story or the anything.
Well, it wasn't a video game that you could play. It was a series of you go to different areas and you'd play mini games and there were house points somehow, but I don't know, I just never was able to really get excited about it. It was it wasn't very immersive. It was having a whole bunch of mini games. It kind of reminds me of if you play Mario Party, you get all these little fun games to play, but you don't necessarily get to explore the world of Mario or that kind of stuff, So it felt kind of like that.
It was like a little marketing ploy where those tidbits and some of the stuff, it's maybe some people love it. It was important to their relationship to Harry Potter, but I think it was supposed to come in to fill in a dark period, and to me, it just didn't really do much.
Well, so there's a little history on the launch, right? So it was publicly available at the end of October 2011. So you had all of the beta stuff. You could sign up early. I think, Jamie, weren't you able to sign up early? Weren't you one of the people who got on there before it was publicly available?
Yeah.
I feel like she got it and I didn't, and I was a little pissed for a while, but then I was able to get on there too. Yeah, that's
I probably did it
what
on time or something.
Well, and I was telling Jamie this before too, is like this was the year that like 2011 is like when I got engaged and then I got married and I moved to Brazil and all that kind of stuff. So there was a lot going on this part of my life. I didn't have a lot of time to dedicate to Pottermore, so I'm okay with that. But so the whole first book was available when it launched in 2011, and then other books started coming out. So July of 2012, they released part of Chamber of Secrets. Then in September, they released the next chunk. And then I think the last piece came out in October, and so kind of spread across 2012. Prisoner of Azkaban was December of 2012, and then chunks in April and July to release the rest of it. Goblet of Fire got parsed out over 2013 and 2014. Order of the Phoenix, came out in 2014, October through, it was dropped, but it had an update. And then Half-Blood Prince was the end of December of 2014. And then finally, Deathly Hallows was dropped in June of 2015. So kind of you get that 4-year time span where they dropped all 7 books, and you could go experience the books and then do things like brew potions, practice spells. Apparently there was a house cup where the first few years they actually had like a house cup winner. And so, for example, the Slytherin house won the house cup the first year. And so that the people in that house were the first ones to get access to Chamber of Secrets, actually, which was kind of interesting. So they got it. What's that?
I remember people saying like you could game the system a little bit, or like it was all about this or that. Like it was always really close, and they're like, that can't be how it really is. But anyway, I mean, it's people had fun with it, and it was a way to interact with the story. I'm happy for it. I was all about the little tidbits.
No, it was cool, and it was also cool because it was very much driven by J.K. Rowling, right? And so it was kind of like this things that she specifically was dropping on there. It seemed much more like accessible to like see her and what she was thinking and how she kind of developed everything. And so I thought that was a really cool aspect of it too. But then later it did get changed. So like Pottermore as it was doesn't exist anymore. Hence the, OG pictures Jamie is sharing. It changed to wizardingworld.com for a while. And that was 2019 through 2024. So really kind of during the Fantastic Beasts, what's now Fantastic Beasts trilogy. During that time frame, I think they were kind of leaning on Wizarding World. And then now it's been moved over as of last year to harrypotter.com. And yeah, the fall, it was kind of pushed over to that. And I think that kind of makes sense because they're trying to refocus it on the Harry Potter aspect, I think, especially with the TV series coming out. To then maybe grow the world from there a little bit, probably.
Yeah. Well, were there any tidbits that you guys remember that really stuck out to you? Like one for me was McGonagall's backstory. Like she had like a near miss romance, and then she kind of became a Hogwarts nun.
So is that all gone now?
We learned a little about her Quidditch experience too, right? Her playing Quidditch and stuff. No, it's all on there. I think I was going through there today. I haven't been on there in a very long time, so it's kind of cool to just go in and see what there was.
Weren't there like age discrepancies? Like didn't they have weren't like ages established on there, and then those were changed when Fantastic Beasts came out? They changed a lot of stuff, like Dumbledore's age and stuff, I think. And I think maybe McGonagall's.
Well, yeah, because McGonagall's still doesn't really make sense the way they had her in that second movie, and what would line up.
I remember being sorted, like when I first got on, and then when they redid like one of the name changes, something you had to like be resorted, or you could like just say this was my old thing. But now I have like you got your wand, and they did like you get your Patronus. So
my first Patronus was a swallow, which is lame.
Oh, and I don't remember what. I
remember taking multiple tests, and I was like, "Ooh, maybe I'll get sorted somewhere different." Gryffindor every time, regrettably. I remember it gave you some lame username, like it just auto-populated 2 wizardy words together.
Yeah,
I liked mine.
Red Ghost or something.
I thought you kind of got a pick. Like, did it like give you random ones to pick
options? But yeah, I was like Silver Horror 492 or something.
Mine was like Rose something or something like that. I do remember that.
I just remember mine had something to do with ghosts. I was like, I like ghosts. What the heck?
Yeah, I always get sorted in Gryffindor.
I told you guys I used to be Gryffindor, and now I get Hufflepuff, and I have mixed feelings about it. So I don't know. Maybe I'll go ahead and retake the quiz. I tried to log in, and it wouldn't log me in. Like none of my email addresses I've used for the last 10 years worked. It said none of those are registered, so I might have to start a new account and see where I get sorted. So I'll tell you guys how it goes.
Yeah, I feel like
when
it's
I have all my free time.
Exploring for sure.
I think it's gonna be fun to get back in here again. I was just trying to do research for this. I was looking at all of it. I do have a topic that I wanted to talk about though, because this is something that I've always found really interesting about Harry Potter, and it hasn't made a lot of sense to me when it comes to like other fantasy books. So like me and my kids have been reading through the Percy Jackson books, and I feel like this is something that's a little bit differently. So kind of the thing has to do with like technology and the Wizarding World. So people like always talk about how it's weird that they still use, torches and like trains when they have all this magic. And like, why don't they take advantage of more technology, right? Why don't they have TVs? Or, I mean, the only time you see a camera it's like a magic version of it where you get to use a special potion and the pictures move and stuff. And so J.K. Rowling actually has a section in Pottermore about that, where she talks about just the beginning is when you can summon any book, instrument, or animal with a wave of the wand and the word accio. There's some debate there. When you communicate with friends and acquaintances by means of owl, fire, patronus, howler, or you can apparate to visit them in person, then the internet does not seem a particularly exciting place. And I think that's really interesting. You just think through all the reasons that we have technology, like the things that were developed over time, like kind of the big categories are like transportation, communication, like manufacturing, medical, and then energy is a really big one because you have to power all the technology, right? And they didn't need those things. So you got to clean your house, you don't need a vacuum cleaner because you have a wand that can do the same exact thing. And so it's interesting, like they didn't evolve past certain things. Like why stop using just like a flame or a quill? Like you don't need a ballpoint pen because if you have a spell to make sure your quill doesn't get all, I don't know, gummed up or whatever, then you don't have that problem, right? You don't need ballpoint pens anymore.
But then you have to keep dipping the quill. I'm gonna. There's a few of these that I don't. Why radio but not TV? It's like nobody can watch a freaking Quidditch match if you're not in person. The pet one doesn't really make sense to me.
Should still be recording over because he's like the main person. Right?
Should work on
it. Makes sense for some things, but not for other things. The technology thing, like you sluts. Communication, like why would we not? Like I get transportation, like because they need the train because kids can't drive and stuff. But then there's other things. Why would you can't? If you're at Hogwarts and you want to communicate with your mother, it takes a long time. And you can't text her.
Well,
there's no cell towers out there, so it doesn't work.
Well, they didn't really have cell. I mean,
but there should be a magic where you can send an instant message.
Maybe that's changed. Maybe they've had to update that now.
That's true.
Because
so here's an interesting part of what Rowling wrote in here, though. So let me read this real quick, and I'll let you go. So it says, there's another reason for most wizards' avoidance of muggle devices, and it's cultural. The magical community prides itself on the fact that it doesn't need the devices that muggles have created to do what they can already do with magic. And so to fill one's house with tumble dryers and telephones would be seen as an admission of magical inadequacy. So it's basically like, yeah, I'm a squib, and I can't do my laundry with my wand, so I've got to buy these muggle devices. And it kind of makes you look like a squib. I don't know.
Kind of agree. I think it's like a wizard pride thing. Like we, think of like certain things we didn't have to have. Would technology have moved in that direction? So those things were probably solely invented by muggles. And they're like, well, we don't need your muggle stuff. Like, because the whole thing with the Wizarding World is that they're all in hiding because they were basically hunted down and ostracized and all that. And so for one, there's that part of it that like Hogwarts is an old castle that doesn't have all those things. So they just kind of like still use flame and all that stuff. I mean, they can Lumos their wands, but the quill thing, that just seems frustrating. That seems like a waste of time. But I do think it's probably like a wizard like pride thing. Like, oh, we don't need your muggle stuff. Because even though wizards, that obviously there's a big war about this, but even the people who aren't like anti-muggle, I think there is this like superiority kind of like face-off thing where like, well, we can do this, they can't do that, or we don't have to like cater to their stuff or use their inventions.
Yeah, there's kind of like a we don't need them aspect too, right? Because like all that stuff has to be manufactured by the muggles, and it's like, oh, I don't need their crap that they make. We're better than them anyway. But I also think the quill thing, maybe it's just because then they can compare, quill sizes, whose quill is bigger than whose. That's
well, and you think like this is what Cursed Child should have been about. The millennial generation being like rebelling and being like, no, we're going to get cell phones. No, I mean, I know they wouldn't work at Hogwarts, but like there has to be some of that. Like this would be so much easier. I'm thinking
of Google Docs, but it's a parchment. So you each have a parchment. When one of you writes on it, it shows up on both. Like there has to be magic that matches some of the technology, because in some ways muggles are way far ahead. So I get the stubborn thing, and I get that it's a fantasy story and I should stop complaining about it. But at the same time, I'm like, some of it is ridiculous. When we think about people pushing the bounds of magic, like Voldemort, it's like, oh, you push the bounds of existence, which is big. But how about you, I don't know, push the bounds of cooking or communicating or watching Quidditch? The Quidditch one is really getting to me.
Oh, like Hermione and the coin. Like she does the coins for the DA. And you think about like it has to be something hidden that people don't know you have it. And so if like everyone just had a cell phone and you're sending out mass texts, that wouldn't work either, because that would be traceable and all this stuff. So maybe there is something for them doing it their own way.
But it wouldn't. So I wrote down a couple of things, like reasons they don't use magic. So the cultural piece talked about. You did bring up that a lot of times technology does not work well around magic. So there's some incompatibility there that causes issues. And I don't know if it's like that happens at Hogwarts on purpose, like they made a spell that makes it so technology doesn't work well, or if it's just around magic, technology doesn't work well. So I think that's something I don't fully understand yet. And then I put that they don't need a lot of certain things. So there was a story, and I swear it was on Pottermore, and maybe I just need to dig deeper, but where J.K. Rowling actually goes into detail about them vanishing their poo. You guys remember this, or have you heard this?
This sounds vaguely familiar.
They do not need plumbing and those kinds of things, because for a long time, like obviously they added it into Hogwarts, they had bathrooms and stuff, but like for generations, for thousands of years, wizards didn't they would just go wherever they wanted, and then they could just vanish it, and it would be gone, right? And so it's kind of so why bother with adopting indoor plumbing and stuff like that? And apparently they did.
Isn't there some sort of wizarding law where nothing ever really actually goes away? So where does the poo go?
Well, that's the law of man, but it goes into nothingness, which is
it's like the food thing. You can't make food out of nothing, but you can prepare the food. You can transform it or transfer it.
I need to know our wizarding laws, it's like a law of physics better, but it's not. It's magic. So, but I think transportation, right? If you can just apparate somewhere, then why would you need
transportation for sure? I think teleportation's further along in the real world, but they won't release it because it would harm the tourism industry, the real estate industry, and the transportation industry. It would crush them.
Well, it's really interesting too to look at like history, like Muggle history. Like for how long the focus of technology was all around transportation, right? You had your trains and you had your automobiles and your airplanes, and now we've kind of like maybe hit like a plateau there that now the focus has gone to communications. Like you don't need to travel somewhere, you can just talk to anyone instantaneously, or like do a podcast with someone in London, someone in Colorado, and someone in Florida all at the same time with like hardly any lag. But like communication is the other piece, when you could do all of that through the Flu Network and through people's fireplaces, then you don't really need text messaging, I guess. I don't know. And then medicine too, like all the healers and stuff. Like those people weren't doctors, but they sure knew their spells and their potions to heal people and stuff, right? So I thought that was there's enough things that like they can kind of do. And then the energy one, we spend so much like time and energy developing new energy technology because we have to power all this crap. And if they don't have to, then they don't have to worry about that whole branch of it, which is very interesting to me.
And there's something nice about living more simply, like as wizards
off
do.
Grid.
It's true.
Maybe
it's true. You ever have that where you have like a blackout that lasts for like a whole day and like you find yourself just vegging?
When I veg, I want the TV to be on. Thank you.
Yeah, when you have kids with no internet.
Well, if you plan correctly, right, and you keep your external batteries charged, you can have your phone on at least. That one still works. It's true. So then I have another thing here, which is just reasons that they do use technology. And I think Jamie talked about this. One of this is like fitting in with the muggles. So, like, they see this cool stuff that the muggles have, and to a degree, it's like, man, that's pretty cool. Like, I want a car or, a cell phone. Like, everyone's walking around with a cell phone. You're going to stick out even more, even if your clothes are weird. If you don't have a cell phone, you're a weirdie. So, kind of like, as they've developed, we don't really know exactly between the 90s and now, but, like, they've got to be carrying around cell phones, and they've got to have some, secret app or something on there that just works for magic people. I don't know. I think that'd be a very interesting thing to explore. And then some of it's just really fun. Like you think about like half the reason we have phones is because we all play games on those things all the time. Or you think about all the VR stuff or, PS5 and Xbox and like all the fun games. Like they ain't going to miss out on all of that. Come on, they're going to want to play some of that. And, they're
going to be superior to us.
Cousins and stuff.
They don't need the dopamine hits that we do. And that's how they're going to take over the world.
They get it from magic.
They've been bored. They're so jealous. And then there's just really convenient things like indoor plumbing and like zippers. Like, come on, where would we be without the zipper? I think about clothing technology and just like the stuff, fabrics we have and stuff for athletics and things like that. And they just be wearing all their button up, wool made crap like that. That doesn't work. They gotta
some
use
places
stuff.
Do that anyway in the Muggle world. Well, I was also thinking like it also is like probably a cultural thing too to like ostracize like squibs more and like kind of maybe alienate Muggle-born people from their Muggle families, and that like, if you can't do these certain things, then you kind of just don't fit in their world because there's not another option. So like if you can't disappear your poo, you're out there digging holes and putting your poo. Like, it's not fair. If you can't apparate, like how are you getting around?
A lot of them seem to live in Muggle environments, wear some Muggle clothes, especially the kids, which, like you said, maybe these things do eventually change. Like, this is the 90s. Maybe a move happens. But in the end, like, if I'm a squib, you know what I'm buying first is a gun. Because unless you have time to block a bullet with a spell, if I shoot you, you can't have Avada me. And that's going to get revenge on all the bullies. But you know what else I'm buying is a cell phone. And I'll be like, look at what I can do. Like, yes, you have better stuff in Magic, but also all the equivalent things that you cannot do. I'm just going to rub it in everyone's face and be like, you know what? I don't feel inferior anymore. And I'm going to live on the other 7.999 billion people in the world and enjoy my life and forget about you hoes just because you could make something levitate. That's not even useful.
When you think about like the transfer, like the fact that when you do apparate, you can like splint yourself or port keys, apparition, flu powder, I get motion sickness so easily. None of those sound like a good option for me. I'm going to need some motion sickness potion just to do all that. So it's like, would you rather take a train or risk being splinched? I don't know.
Well, you get good at it. It's like driving. Like if you're a bad driver, you don't drive. Well, they do. But if you're a bad apparator, you don't apparate. But
do you?
You take a broom like Harry. Harry doesn't like apparating. Even when he's grown, he likes a broom. Just saying.
The wedgie. Is there a seat on the broom?
That's true. There must be a spell there to keep that from going
I took a spin class and my butt hurt so bad. Like I don't know how people do it. And so like a broomstick is just as bad, if not worse.
Oh, worse. I mean, for you guys,
class, you're supposed to be up off the seat.
Well, you do some of both, but like
on your legs.
I don't want to go into the reasons that it was painful, but I'm not a spin guy. I'm not signing up for Soul Cycle anytime soon.
When I look at you, Mitch, I just think.
But no, Stevie, because they'll be like, okay, they're like, relax, go at an easy pace, and they're like, everybody up, let's go, and then they pump up the jam, and then you're going, and it's.
I love how it's with a British accent because
I didn't even notice. Here we go. I did get a spin instructor come up on my TikTok, and they like do classes like exclusively to Taylor Swift, and I was like, I'd still hate it. It may have to do with like the fact that I have traumatic injuries from car accident.
Luckily, there's a wide range of Tay-Tay music, so they could do quite a bit with that. That's true.
Yeah, no, I mean, she's got a great. She got plenty for a couple classes of playlists, but
eras, each
should have its own. What if you did a class for each era?
So
I'd go to Zumba.
Is
there a Taylor Swift Zumba class? I could do that.
I'm sure there's a Taylor Swift everything, dude.
Is there Taylor Swift flavored skinny pop?
Hopefully not for long.
Our planetarium is doing a Taylor Swift light show.
That is bad.
The planetarium.
I'm ready to move past it, though. Let's just.
Okay, Steven, did you have any other tidbits before we go into?
No, I'm just saying the world needs to move past.
No, we do need a break. She needs a break. She's released like all these albums and done this giant tour and all the re-releases.
She's gonna OD any day now.
Not in a bad way.
She is relaxing.
I know. She's
I think because they're all mad at her for not releasing
full on
Reputation.
Aren't they mad at her because she's friends with what's her name and the whole feud?
She's kind of taking a step back from all that because Blake Lively put her into like some of the stuff anyway.
She called her one of her dragons.
I don't keep up with that well enough, apparently. So
Blake Lively compared herself to Khaleesi, and then Taylor Swift is one of the dragons.
Oh, dang!
Which is like, in what world does Blake Lively think that she's bigger than Taylor Swift?
I don't think she thinks. I think she's saying that Taylor Swift's bigger than her, and that she
maybe
can
during
use her
Sisterhood of the Traveling
to intimidate
Pants.
people.
Yeah, that's true. I guess
sicker
Danny's dragons
the
are stronger than her, and she does sick them on people. I'm gonna go through. Go, yeah.
So can I milk this topic one more thing, because this I think is really interesting, because I feel like this comes up a lot online and like in Reddit threads and stuff like that. It's about kind of like the Weasleys being poor, and my beef with like the Weasleys being poor is that when you think about all this stuff, what do wizards need to spend their money on? Like, how much do they really need to earn to live when you can multiply your food? And you know what I mean? And so it's kind of like, so in that sense, like, how did they end up so much poorer than everybody else? And how, I mean, I get to the Malfoys have gold, and I guess you can use that to like influence the Minister of Magic or something like that. But like, you can't afford books. So like, I think about like Mitchell in England, right? Because all your healthcare stuff is kind of rolled into NHS, people generally, and this is, you know, kind of, I don't know, nerdy job stuff, but like people in general, like they make less, like their actual take home pay is lower because certain things are already taken care of. Same thing happens in Canada. Here we have to have a higher pay because then you have to deduct all of our healthcare costs from that. And so when certain things are just not a factor, right? You don't got to pay for transportation on the underground. You don't got to pay for food as much because you can multiply crap and, you know, cars and different services, and you're not spending a ton of money, $1,000 on an iPhone every year or two, then you don't need as much money. So how did they end up so dang broke?
There's a guy on TikTok, I think his handle is Flame Black, but his whole thing is also that he's like, okay, and you think about like, they have a lot of kids, but the way they're birthed out, Hogwarts is free, apparently. But there's also like, Harry's like, I don't know if I have money for Hogwarts. And they're like, well, you have your parents' money, but whatever. And then so their kids, once they're 11, they're at Hogwarts. So even by the time Jenny hits 11, you know, all the kids are out and about. Well, why are they still poor? But even before that, there's like only 2 or 3, you know, maybe 4 kids at home, 2 kids at Hogwarts, then 2 kids at home, you know, and then they're being fed at Hogwarts. They only have to like take the clothes, you know, their uniforms. They do have to pay for books and all that stuff, but like the housing free. Why can't Molly go get a job once Jenny's at Hogwarts?
Wait, my thing is though, like,
I think the other piece of that is, what are Molly's qualifications? Could she get a job? Like, I don't know.
She can be Bellatrix. She can do a lot.
I mean, that's
moms
true.
can do anything, Stephen. But seriously, like,
yes,
they could. When it says, "Oh, their clothes are ratty" or their book is bad, it's like, isn't there a spell for that to like clean something, enlarge it so it's you don't even need new jeans because your old jeans you just up on the size. Yeah, the dress robes from 1980. Nope, that's not it. 18.
And I know
that was
Ron
great,
is
actually. Goblet of Fire. That was so funny.
I know Ron is very
Ron's clothes from a century ago.
Like, I mean, if I had a best friend who was super rich and I was poor, I get that. Like, you don't want like.
But what do you need money
pity,
for?
Like, but if I was going to be that embarrassed by some dress robes, I'd be like, okay, just buy me some dress robes and I'll pay you back when I'm an adult. I don't know. But this is my theory. My theory is that Arthur is a gambling addict. He won one time, and then immediately they spent all that money to go on a big family trip, and then he just keeps wasting all the money. I don't know.
But what do they need money for? I don't understand. You do it all with magic.
Well, you have to buy the food.
Yeah, and then you can duplicate
and
it
their property
forever.
probably costs
you can duplicate it forever.
They don't have electrical bill every month, right? They don't probably have a water bill. Like maybe
Arthur
I don't know.
Might be using electricity. He is into
online.
that shiz.
But
that's
like
true.
A book.
He has plugs.
Like if they had a book, can't you just duplicate the book? Like, why? I just don't understand what they're spending money on. I just don't know. Rent is the only thing that kind of makes sense.
Well, I think it is a hole in it, right? Because like you said, with the duplicating the book thing, like you think about pirating music, right? Like we do, that would have been their version. They could have started that way before people started sharing music on Napster. We're like, yeah, here, you don't got to share textbooks in college with other students because you're broke. You can just copy
and
paste. Get the old book.
It's a spell.
I don't care. Get the old book. Save the money there. And also help the environment a little bit by not having to make more books. And then buy some nicer clothing. But their clothes don't look that bad.
There's another question. If I duplicate a book, does that mean that the material comes from a tree somewhere? Does that like disappear from there and appear here? Like,
no, it adds mass to the world. Even
complex.
Newton's laws are lies. That's what we learned from. Okay. In general, yeah.
So the last part of this, I promise. But no, the last part of this, I promise, is just like, I think that like what it drives in society is very different for wizards too, though, right? Because for us, like I think at work stuff, like I'm very useful to a lot of people because I am capable of using technology, not, as well as some of the Gen Zers. But when I'm working with, boomers and everything, and they can't print something and I can figure it out for them, it's very useful. And so like our ability to use an iPad or use, Microsoft Office is like, it makes us more useful. And for them, it's being good at charms, or it's good at, because they don't need all of those technology things. So they have to really be good at the spells so that they can, make the most out of their life. So maybe that's where the poverty really comes from. Maybe the Weasleys historically just are not good at magic, so they have to spend their money on other shiz. So that's my last thought on the whole wizarding technology stuff.
Don't they talk about how good Molly is about like cooking spells and cleaning spells? I need some of those spells.
That's true.
That's
true.
It's you do kind of have to ignore it, and it's as like it doesn't actually bother me, but I am just like there's like you have to have cognitive dissonance, and it's quite funny to think about. But I've been reading this list called the top 10 most shocking reveals from Pottermore, and they're not that shocking. And it's from whatculture.com, so I assume an AI wrote it, but I did check to make sure it's actually the information from Pottermore. And like, there's stuff I kind of forgot about, or I'm like, oh, maybe I never even read this. But I do remember she said Florian Fortescue was almost important. He was almost using like the Phineas Nigellus role to like help supply Harry information. Azkaban was a private island for a dark wizard. Like, there are some cool ideas in there that, again, if we get some
Epstein Island.
I was going to say Fudge. It said in there that Fudge awarded himself some really high honors, and I'm like, that's pretty Trumpian. Kingsley Shacklebolt was a minister.
That's pretty bitey.
Yeah, executive orders all over the place. What is happening in that country without you guys? And then, Queen Elizabeth has a couple of things. One, Lucius Malfoy's ancestor was trying to hit that. And then apparently she was friends with witches. So there's been some royalty intermixing here. And then we find out like Umbridge was a half-blood, which is quite funny because also another, I don't know if this is a plot hole, but the fact that Voldemort is like, everyone knows he's a half-blood, and yet his followers are like so dead set on the pure bloodiness, It's just like Hitler walking around with a yarmulke on. It doesn't vibe.
I could be completely wrong. Wasn't Hitler's
they
heritage
but I thought it was less. It was like 1/16. Like he did have some, but
okay.
There was Jewish ancestry somewhere in there. But either way, it's just the idea. Yeah, you kind of have to separate your mind on some things. But generally, I liked a lot of the Pottermore stuff, and this kind of makes me want to go back and examine some of it again a little bit closer.
The Umbridge thing I really liked because that makes sense with her like claiming the locket's hers because she really wants to like claim that she's a pure and you could see that manifesting where people want so bad to be part of whatever that they like.
They've got some rhythm. The pinging is back.
Oh, neighbors going at it.
Anyway, so Pottermore was during a dark time and had some minimally interesting tidbits that I'm actually going to go and reread. But yeah, and then we kind of got Fantastic Beasts and we got Cursed Child, but it's interesting how that tried to keep us connected to an interesting story. And there was just only so much that could be done, but it was an interesting way for intellectual property to try and remain relevant. And it let Joe put some cool things out there. It let people interact. I think
it was free, which was cool. Like she could have written all of that stuff into little mini books and sold them.
Bought it. You remember
she could have made a lot of money off of that.
She released like the children's stories book, and she one time just wrote like a little short story about Sirius Black that was handwritten. And she auctioned it off, but then you could find the picture online and stuff. And I'm just thinking of all the little teeny ways we were just dying for more Potter. And now we're getting more Potter, but it's the same story. But hopefully those Pottermore represents like different spin-offs and ideas that can be incorporated in the future. But yeah, just remember all those little tidbits. Well, and also while the books were coming out she had a website and there was her desk and you could like do certain like not even games, like you had to find hidden Easter eggs that had little tidbits about the next book. And that is actually what Pottermore really reminded me of when it first began, because you just click on some stuff, and if you clicked on it right, something slightly cooler might happen. But in the end, I think it was just a letdown because the build up, I was like, what is this going to be? Could this turn into something more? And I think it felt a little bit flat for me, but it was a very curious attempt.
Well, and I think the cool thing, I think this might be a topic for another episode, is just around all of like the fandom stuff and just like the onlineness of it all. Like this was really the first time, like as these books were coming out, that like these forums online where you could like join online fan clubs and you could talk and hypothesize about what was going to happen, and all the shipping stuff started. And so there was a lot of this that was kind of like brand new for like as a book series coming out, right? And you had the big midnight releases and stuff, but just like people online talking about it constantly, and all the fan fiction, all that kind of stuff, like that had never really happened before. There's actually a really interesting book about that. I'm trying to remember what it's called. Is it Area History? The one by Melissa Nelly.
I don't know the name of the author.
She helped run Leaky Cauldron and stuff. And so that's not why we talk about another time, but I think this was like an attempt at an extension of that. It's like, hey, all these people are online. They're really involved in all this Harry Potter stuff, and like give them a place to go and to get stuff and everything like that. And so I think it was an attempt at that. I don't think it worked incredibly well, but I think, since we were all so starved for anything Potter at the time, I think all of us went there, all of us checked it out, and there were some really cool.
There should have been a way to interact together a little bit more on there, I think. And obviously there wasn't theorizing to be done much anymore, but there would have been some sort of chat function or something. It wasn't a cash grab, but it was just seemed so random. And yeah, like when you think about all those hubs, like
I liked it.
Like MuggleNet, they always had, and then there were these message boards that went crazy, and all that fan fiction. A lot of that fan fiction now is they're taking out Hermione and Draco's name and publishing it as a romance novel, and they're getting made into movies and stuff. Like, it is kind of wild that all stemmed from Harry Potter. Like, I know shipping was probably before and this and that, but I think it's definitely one of the main things that's progressed, like sort of how we talk about television and film now is from Harry Potter fandom. Because I remember waiting for the next Harry Potter, waiting for the next Star Wars, waiting for the next Lord of the Ring, and there was like each of them had like a website where there might be a chat option, or where they dump all the news, like the OneRing.net, or there was one about to do with the Force, I can't remember, but where people were really, it was especially before Revenge of the Sith, like what's going to happen. And I think Harry Potter was like a huge catalyst for that at that time. Like that, the internet rising up with those fandoms was a very fascinating time, and Pottermore was kind of like a weird afterthought from that. You guys have any other final thoughts on the more pot?
I mean, I would like more. I'm sure that J.K. Rowling still got a ton of crap in her head that hasn't made its way online yet, and I would love for her to start regurgitating that for us. That'd be great.
And like
find another outlet.
A cool story, or like notes that aren't going to hurt continuity that you think will be interesting, and some of them were like, this is what almost happened, and I'm like, I'll take that too, We
don't need to start a whole discussion about this, but she has said some things about Harry Potter things that have gone back and made me mad, like that she doesn't think that it made sense that Hermione and Ron ended up together. And I mean, there's just some like going back on some of the history of stuff, and I'm like, oh, just leave it alone. So I also get nervous about, she tweeted the other day something about the Deathly Hallow symbol, and how she's like, oh, I have so much on that, maybe one day I'll release that. And I'm like, is this from back then, or is this like you're gonna write something now? Because I would rather like know what originally your intention was, as opposed to like turning it into something else. But I am grateful that she put all this out. Like, I do think it's really cool that they did Pottermore and that they attempted to do something, and I enjoyed it, and I liked reading all the little stuff, and I was like, I just wanted anything, Yeah.
Well, I'm a little torn about it. I used to always think like the way that they had it for Star Wars, before Disney bought it. I don't know how exactly they had it set up, right? But they had all these authors who basically were writing in the world of Star Wars, and George Lucas had like a committee of some sort that would like approve stuff that could, be part of canon and so they kept, as a group, I feel like they kept a very tight like control of things, making sure they made sense and that there was still continuity and things were not conflicting, and it wasn't perfect. But I kind of feel like with some of this, it's Rowling's own head, right? It's just kind of her by herself. It's like kind of like, can we give her a few people and like they could do something similar where either she's writing stuff and they're verifying that she's not effing it up, or they're letting other people write in that world and making sure that they're not screwing it up, and so that we can keep things, tight. That's how it needs to be.
Yeah, I think it's hard because you always want more, but
hidden back.
That's what happens when you do that.
What happened?
Not at it.
Oh,
first child. She's got like back there behind the other books.
It's true.
She's ashamed.
I don't even want to donate it because I don't want anyone.
The one time she let someone else write in the world, and even then had a passing edit. Like, we didn't like it, so maybe we should not ask for things that we may not want. But yeah, like
maybe it's good.
I know a lot about the expanded universe for Star Wars, and I read a few of those. Like they're going to literally redo Thrawn just to make him fit with the new canon. I'm sure it's already started. I haven't been reading, but I don't know what elements where it would fit for Harry Potter. But you almost are like, let's let someone give it a shot. Let's see what happens with something.
I mean, if we can find our Filoni and our
Favreau.
Favreau, right? Then I think that might be because I mean, as much as I love George Lucas, I feel like he was losing it toward the end, but he just didn't have it anymore. But they got it, and
Joe is
so maybe
for better and for worse a control freak. But I don't think this is really the world she wants to write in anymore. And I don't think that she thought that deep. No, when I say that deeply, very very deep, but not maybe as deep as like George R. R. Martin thinks about his worlds. I think she was writing a story that happened to have like all the fantasy elements, but she wasn't world building and magic building. And some of these characters, I'm sure she's had thoughts, but she didn't need to fully flesh them. So there may only be so much to work with, but whatever we get next to be good. She did say she's almost done with, I think she's already writing the last of the strike novels. So maybe she'll turn her attention to something interesting. And maybe it won't matter because if this show is really good, eventually someone will just pay her unbelievable amounts of money to go forward with the IP, like has happened with others.
So they really just need to not screw up this show. Let's do it.
Well, that's why we're here, Stephen, to give advice. I've been sending every episode to Francesca and Andy Greenwald, and we're gonna we'll see how it goes. Speaking of, next we're gonna talk about season 5 of the show, Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. The longest book.
The 5th movie.
The big one.
Yeah, it's a big one that like I'm kind of torn on that. Like the DA stuff is some of my favorite stuff because like I didn't fantasize about going to a boarding school, but something about Harry's experience was so cool about being kids, being away, being in this world, and that's your existence. And I think the way that I have nostalgia for the good things from being younger, I think then like the DA and like bringing that group of people together was really good. But there's other things that I'm like, and Harry is kind of angsty, so it's a little like.
It's my favorite book.
A lot goes down, and we're going to break it down, and we're going to tell you how it should be put into a television program also as well, and lead into the Half-Blood Prince, which is Jamie's favorite movie.
I love Half-Blood Prince.
I hated the Half-Blood Prince.
Yeah, I would really...
No, I love it.
Yeah. But especially kicking off as soon as Voldemort comes back at the end of Goblet of Fire, like that's the beginning of the end, right? The rest of this is like the descent into chaos and then the resolution, and so this is where things get really good.
Real now.
I'm excited.
Snitches.
We all gotta watch the movie.
Yes. And I gotta remember some book stuff. I feel like this is one where I don't remember the in-between details as well as I should. I'm excited to see how because the rest are all directed by the same guy, like what we see, okay, the 4 to 5 change, and then how does he evolve and what stays consistent in a good way? Because I think it actually was a sure hand that they were sticking with. Like they didn't want to try anything like they did with the third one, even though like that might have been really successful. They needed a steady hand to bring it home. But we'll get into that next time on the HPTV podcasts, because in the end, we are a podcast about a television program that is probably 2 years away. But for Stephen and Jaime, I'm Mitchell, and this has been another lovely episode. We'll see you next week.
Peace out, snitches.